to make apologies for that, because it was outside my jurisdiction.
After a month in Malta, the Liberty was patched up and ready to begin her journey home.
It was pretty eerie because we had to stand watches different times down where the torpedo had hit. We had to check for leaks, and you could smell the fuel oil, and it was so eerie. You know, your shipmates were just down there, and you'd swear that they were talking to you.
We arrived to fanfare, to local press, and Miss Norfolk, Miss Hospitality, Miss everybody. Anyway, they got us in and got us tied up, and all inside was nothing but just shell of a ship. Nothing was left. One of the things that bothered me for years was coming home. I'd survived all that other stuff, but the coming home part and facing people who had lost their loved ones, that was very difficult. Very, very difficult.
The men had been ordered never to talk about the attack under threat of court-martial. Now the Navy scattered them, and no two were posted together. Even their medals were awarded secretively.
I remember receiving my Purple Heart in the captain's office in Bremerhaven, Germany, and with the warning, don't ever tell anyone where you got it. Don't ever. I knew at that time that things had gone terribly wrong with what had happened to us. I knew something was up, and so I basically made a decision to get out of the Navy. And I finished off my obligation, resigned my commission, and left the Navy.
Captain McGonigal was given America's highest award, but with little ceremony.
That's the only Congressional Medal of Honor that I'm familiar with that was not presented by the President of the United States. It's normal protocol for the President to present the CMH. It was presented by the Secretary of the Navy at the Navy Yard, a little base down in southeast Washington, rather than at the White House by the President.
Well, certainly I think it was the way that the Navy and the White House handled this was a travesty. Johnson didn't want this thing publicized. He thought it would harm relations with Israel and his relations with Jews in the United States.
For Liberty, that you were commanding officer at that time. Thank you very much, sir. For the officers and men of Liberty, I accept this Presidential Unit citation, and I would add my own personal appreciation for their professional devotion to duty.
Every one of our citations talks about military action, occasionally mentions enemy action, but never mentions that it was the State of Israel.
For heroic achievement in connection with the unprovoked and unexpected armed attack on USS Liberty in the Eastern Mediterranean on 8th of June 1967. A Silver Star Medal to Lieutenant George H. Golden. 3 times when told to stand by for a torpedo attack.
I witnessed a cover-up take place of the highest magnitude. I witnessed someone receiving the highest medal of the land, someone being promoted, someone given his choice of duty in the Navy for his silence. Nothing more, nothing less. And the silence paid off. The captain never stepped forward until the end of his life. And I only think what could have been if he'd have stepped forward in 1967.
But a presidential election was coming up. Nobody in power wanted to let questions about the USS Liberty spoil relations with victorious Israel.
I
think it should have caused more of a problem than it did. We went on in official reactions to each other, and we renewed our old friendships. Considered we really ignored it for all practical purposes, and we shouldn't have. It was a very bad thing.
If you want to win a war quickly, there will be more mistakes, unfortunately. But the result of those mistakes is that you have won the war in 6 days. So this is the price you have to pay. Unfortunately, the price in this case, one of the prices, was the Liberty ship.
Israel today still occupies the conquered Palestinian territories, thanks to continued U.S. support. The war of only 6 days has left a painful legacy of suspicion, suffering, and sorrow. Among those living with that legacy are the Liberty survivors, bitter about their own government's cover-up. Jim Ennis spent years trying to find out what had really happened.
This book will be with me as long as I'm here. I've often said I'd like to have seen it go away years ago. I would have hoped that my book would have generated a congressional investigation that would have answered the remaining questions, and the whole thing could have been put to rest, and there'd be no question about what happened and why, and we just put it on and we all go on to other things.
Jerry Goss, Petty Officer. Melvin Smith, Chief Petty Officer. Carl Noah, Seaman. John Spicer, Petty Officer. Gary Blanchard, Seaman. Alan Blue, Civilian. Jerry Converse, Petty Officer.
There's 34 guys that can't talk. And there's 34 families that need some answers. And there's the rest of the crew that needs some answers too. I really don't have any malice against the guys who pulled the triggers, because they were the guys that were given orders, do it, because if you don't do it, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. I would like to meet those guys and see what they've had to say to me. People who gave the orders, they got away with murder.
The BBC 4 Zone returns to BBC 2 next Tuesday with a profile of the influential advertising agency that included Charles Saatchi, Alan Parker and David Putnam, the men from the agency 11:20 next week. And starting now over on BBC 4, a contender for the coveted Samuel Johnson Prize for Fiction.